I sit alone at Fletcher's Steakhouse staring at my phone in complete disbelief. Tonight was supposed to be my celebration dinner for landing the regional marketing director position I'd worked toward for 3 years. My family promised they'd be here by 7:30. Instead, at 8:15, I receive a group text that makes my blood run cold. Sorry, Lisa can't make it tonight. Tommy got into State University and we're throwing him a surprise party. You're not our priority right now. Family comes first. Congratulations, though. The waiter approaches with champagne I ordered for 4 people. My hands shake as I read the message 3 more times, hoping the words will somehow rearrange themselves into something less devastating. Each letter burns into my memory like a brand. My parents, Margaret and Robert, my younger sister Jessica, and even my Aunt Diane had all confirmed their attendance just yesterday morning. They knew how much this promotion meant to me. For the past 3 years, I'd sacrificed everything climbing the corporate ladder at Harrison Marketing Solutions. Weekends disappeared into client presentations and market research. I'd missed Jessica's birthday party last month because of a crucial deadline. I had turned down dinner invitations, declined dates, and even skipped my college roommate's wedding because work demanded everything from me. But it was going to be worth it. Tonight was supposed to prove that all those sacrifices had meaning. Now I'm thinking about Tommy, my 20-year-old brother who barely graduated high school with a 2.1 grade point average. He spends most of his time in his childhood bedroom playing video games and arguing with our parents about household chores. State University isn't even a real university. It's the local community college that everyone in town sarcastically calls State because it sounds more impressive than Millfield Community College. I press my mother's contact with trembling fingers, but the call goes straight to voicemail. Her cheerful recorded voice mocks me. "Hi, you've reached Margaret. Leave a message and I'll get back to you soon." The beep feels like a slap across my face. Jessica answers on the second ring, but I can barely hear her over the background noise. Laughter music and the sound of multiple conversations create a wall of celebration that I'm not part of. "Lisa," she shouts into the phone, "sorry, but you know how Mom gets about Tommy. This is such huge news for him. We had to celebrate properly." "Jessica, wait." I start, but she's already hanging up. The waiter returns to my table, his professional smile wavering slightly as he notices my untouched water glass and the 3 empty chairs around me. "Will your party be arriving soon, miss?" he asks gently. I look down at my outfit. The navy blue dress I bought specifically for this dinner, the heels that cost half a week's salary, the delicate gold necklace that was my graduation gift to myself. I'd imagined my family seeing me like this, successful and confident, finally ready to be proud of their daughter who'd made something of herself. "They're not coming," I whisper more to myself than to him. The champagne glasses mock me from across the table, their empty bowls reflecting the restaurant's warm lighting. I'd specifically requested this corner table so we could talk without disturbing other diners. I'd made reservations 3 weeks ago right after my boss, Patricia, confirmed my promotion was going through. I'd even printed copies of my offer letter to show everyone the salary increase and new responsibilities. My phone buzzes with a notification. Instagram. Jessica has posted a story showing balloons and a homemade banner reading, "Congratulations, Tommy." The timestamp shows she posted it 20 minutes ago, which means they were already deep into party preparations when they sent me that text. This wasn't a last-minute decision. They'd been planning this for hours, maybe days, while letting me believe they'd prioritize my achievement, while letting me believe I mattered enough to celebrate. The waiter clears his throat softly. "Perhaps I could box up some appetizers for you to take home, or would you prefer to look at our dessert menu?" I realize I've been sitting here for over an hour nursing a glass of water and staring at my phone like it might suddenly display different messages. Other families and couples around me are laughing, clinking glasses, celebrating their own milestones. A young couple at the next table is sharing a chocolate cake with a single candle, probably an anniversary or birthday. "Just the check, please," I manage to say. As he walks away, my phone buzzes again. This time, it's an Instagram story from my cousin Amanda showing the party from a different angle. I can see Tommy sitting in the center of our parents' living room like a king holding courts, surrounded by gift bags and cards. There are at least 30 people there. Relatives who drove from other states, family friends I haven't seen in months, neighbors from the old street where we all grew up. These are the same people who claimed that they couldn't make it to my Northwestern graduation because of gas prices. The same relatives who said they were too busy to attend my housewarming party 6 months ago. But for Tommy's acceptance to community college, they've materialized from thin air bearing gifts and wearing party hats. I scroll through the posts, each one a fresh knife wound. Uncle Paul holding up a gift card. Cousin Sarah making bunny ears behind Tommy's head for a photo. My grandmother Helen, who'd specifically told me she was excited to hear about my promotion over dinner tonight, is clearly visible in the background, handing Tommy what looks like a savings bond in a fancy envelope. The final insult comes when I check my own Facebook post from this morning, a professional headshot announcing my promotion with a caption about hard work paying off. 3 likes. Tommy's party posts are already climbing toward 50 likes and dozens of comments filled with heart emojis and congratulations. I pay the check with my new company credit card, leaving a generous tip because the waiter doesn't deserve to suffer for my family's cruelty. As I gather my purse and jacket, I catch my reflection in the restaurant's window. I look exactly like what I am, a successful woman who's dressed for celebration but sitting alone in the ruins of her expectations. The drive to my parents' house happens without conscious decision. My car seems to navigate the familiar streets automatically, while my mind reels with disbelief and growing anger. How could they do this to me? How could they prioritize Tommy's minimal achievement over my genuine success? But even as I ask myself these questions, I know the answer. This is how it's always been. Tommy is the baby, the son, the one who needs protection and encouragement. I'm the responsible one, the achiever, the daughter who can take care of herself and therefore doesn't need family support. Except tonight, I desperately needed them to show up for me. And they chose Tommy instead. I park across Maple Street from my childhood home, far enough away that the party guests won't notice my car, but close enough to see everything through the large front windows. The house glows with warm light, and I can make out figures moving around inside like characters in a play I'm no longer invited to watch. Balloons in blue and gold, our high school colors, bob from the front porch railing. A professionally made banner stretches across the living room wall, reading, "Congratulations, graduate," in elaborate script. My mother clearly spent time and money making this celebration perfect for Tommy. The same mother who suggested we keep my promotion dinner simple because we don't want to get too fancy. Through the window, I count at least 30 people crowding into the space that usually feels cramped with just our immediate family. Tommy sits in Dad's leather recliner like a throne, opening gift after gift, while our relatives and family friends circle around him with phones out, capturing every moment for social media posterity. I recognize faces I haven't seen in months. Cousin Bradley, who lives 4 hours away in Toledo, claiming he drove down just for this special occasion. Aunt Carol, who always complains about her arthritis, making long drives impossible. She's right there helping arrange gifts on the coffee table. Uncle Mike and Aunt Susan, who said they couldn't afford to visit for any holidays this year, are standing by the kitchen doorway, holding matching gift bags. These are the same people who had elaborate excuses when I graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern 3 years ago. Cousin Bradley had a work conference he absolutely couldn't miss. Aunt Carol's arthritis was acting up terribly. Uncle Mike and Aunt Susan were between paychecks and couldn't manage the gas money. But for Tommy's acceptance to community college, something that required filling out a basic application and paying a $50 fee, they've all materialized like magic, bearing gifts and wearing celebratory smiles. My phone buzzes with social media notifications, Instagram stories, Facebook posts, Snapchat updates. Everyone is documenting Tommy's achievement like it's a historic moment. I scroll through them with growing disbelief, watching my extended family create a digital record of their enthusiasm for my brother's minimal accomplishment. Then I see something that makes my stomach drop to my shoes. Derek Martinez, my ex-boyfriend from 2 years ago, is clearly visible in 3 different photos laughing with my father by the fireplace and helping carry gift bags from the kitchen. Derek. The same Derek. My mother spent months bad-mouthing after our breakup, claiming he lacked ambition and wasn't good enough for her daughter. The Derek she said was holding me back from my true potential. The Derek she specifically blamed for my poor choices in dating, even though he was kind, hardworking, and supportive of my career goals. Now Derek is at Tommy's party, apparently welcomed back into the family fold like a long-lost relative. I can see him in conversation with my father, both of them holding beers and gesturing animatedly like old friends. Dad's arm is around Derek's shoulders in one photo, the kind of casual affection he's never shown toward any boyfriend I've brought home since Derek. The betrayal feels complete now. Not only did they choose Tommy's fake achievement over my real success, but they've also welcomed back the ex-boyfriend they spent months convincing me to dump. Derek, who called me twice after our breakup, asking if we could work things out. Derek, who I turned away because my family convinced me he wasn't ambitious enough for someone with my potential. I think about our relationship ending, how my mother would make subtle comments about Derek's job as a physical therapy assistant, implying it wasn't professional enough for someone in my position, how she'd ask pointed questions about his career plans and whether he was really serious about advancing himself, how she'd compare him unfavorably to Tommy, saying at least Tommy had potential while Derek was settling for mediocrity. I believed her. I let her plant seeds of doubt that grew into relationship-ending arguments. When Derek proposed we move in together, I hesitated because Mom had convinced me he was dragging down my upward trajectory. When he suggested we take a weekend trip to Chicago to look at the city where I might want to advance my career, Mom pointed out that he was expecting me to include him in decisions that should be mine alone. Eventually, Derek and I had the conversation that ended everything. He told me he felt like he was constantly being evaluated and found lacking by my family, and that I seemed to agree with their assessment. I denied it, but not convincingly enough. He said he loved me, but couldn't compete with expectations that seemed designed to eliminate him from consideration. "Your family will never think I'm good enough," he'd said during our last real conversation. "And sometimes, I think you agree with them." I'd protested, but weakly. Mom's constant criticism had worked its way into my thoughts. I'd started noticing things about Derek that aligned with her complaints. His contentment with his current job, his preference for quiet evenings over networking events, his satisfaction with a simple life rather than constant ambition. When we finally broke up, Mom was supportive in the way that felt like vindication. "You're better off without him," she'd said. "Someone with your drive needs a partner who matches your energy. Derek was sweet, but he would have held you back eventually." Now Derek is laughing with my father at Tommy's party, looking relaxed and happy in a way I rarely saw during the last months of our relationship. He fits into my family's gatherings seamlessly, like he belongs there more than I do. I lean back in my car seat, feeling the weight of multiple betrayals layering on top of each other. They chose Tommy over me. They welcomed Derek back after convincing me he wasn't worthy. They celebrated a minimal achievement with more enthusiasm than they've ever shown for my genuine accomplishments. But the worst part is realizing this isn't new behavior. This is a pattern I've been blind to because I was always too busy trying to earn their approval to notice how freely they gave it to everyone else. My phone buzzes with a text from Jessica. "Where are you? Mom wants to FaceTime you into the party so you can congratulate Tommy properly." The audacity takes my breath away. They want me to participate in celebrating Tommy from a distance like a consolation prize for missing my own promotion dinner. They want me to smile through a phone screen and pretend I'm happy about being excluded from my own family's priorities. I turn off my phone and start my car. The party continues without me, just like my life will have to continue without them. My downtown apartment feels like a sanctuary when I finally unlock the door, kicking off the expensive heels that were supposed to impress my family tonight. The space represents everything I've worked for. The exposed brick walls I fell in love with during my first viewing the modern kitchen, where I've learned to cook for one the huge windows overlooking the city lights that remind me daily of how far I've come. I'd saved for 18 months to afford the down payment on this place, putting aside money while my parents helped Tommy buy his used Honda Civic because he needed reliable transportation for his future. The same future that apparently consists of community college classes and continued residence in his childhood bedroom. Every piece of furniture in this apartment tells a story of my independence. The dining table I bought to host family dinners that rarely happen. The sectional sofa where I imagined my parents visiting to see my success firsthand. The framed degrees and professional certifications that line my home office wall. Achievements that my family acknowledges with polite nods before changing the subject back to Tommy's latest video game high score. I pour myself a glass of the wine I'd been saving for tonight's celebration and settle onto my sofa with my laptop. On the coffee table sits a photo from last Christmas where we're all posed together in front of my parents' tree, everyone smiling like we're the perfect American family. Mom has her arm around Tommy, who's wearing the expensive gaming headset I bought him. Dad stands behind Jessica, his hands on her shoulders. I'm positioned slightly apart, smiling, but somehow separate, even in family photos. I remember taking that photo. Jessica set up her phone timer and we had to take 6 different shots because Tommy kept looking at his phone instead of the camera. In the final version, the one that ended up on Mom's Facebook page, Tommy is the only one looking directly at the lens with a genuine smile. The rest of us are focused on him like he's the sun we all orbit around. That's when the pattern becomes crystal clear. Every family gathering, every holiday, every celebration centers on Tommy and his needs. When he wanted to quit his part-time job at the grocery store because it interfered with his gaming schedule, the family rallied to support his decision and increase his allowance. When I worked 3 jobs during college to minimize student loans, I was praised for my independence and told how proud they were that I didn't need help. The responsible one who sent money when Dad's contracting business hit a slow patch 2 winters ago. The responsible one who co-signed Tommy's car loan when his credit score came back insufficient due to his complete lack of financial history. The responsible one who's always expected to understand when family resources go to Tommy instead of being distributed equally. I open a new document and begin typing. Not an angry rant filled with emotions I'll regret later, but something calculated and final. Something that will make them understand the consequences of their choices without giving them ammunition to dismiss my feelings as dramatic or overreacting. The letter takes shape slowly, each sentence crafted with the same precision I use in marketing campaigns. I list their betrayal clearly and factually. I reference specific examples of favoritism they can't deny. I explain that their text message tonight wasn't an isolated incident, but the final straw in a pattern of prioritizing Tommy's wants over my needs. I write about the Christmas when Tommy received a $700 gaming setup, while my present was a $50 gift card, because you're so hard to shop for. I mention the family vacation they planned around Tommy's spring break schedule, without checking if I could get time off work. I describe the countless times they've introduced him as their baby boy with so much potential, while presenting me as their responsible daughter who has everything figured out. The most important paragraph addresses their financial priorities. I detail the money I've contributed to family emergencies, the loans I've co-signed, the gifts I've given that helped maintain their lifestyle. Then I contrast it with Tommy's expenses. The car payments, they help him make the insurance, they pay the allowance he receives for doing chores that I did for free throughout high school. I end the letter with a clear statement of my new boundaries. Since I'm not their priority, I'm removing myself from their lives entirely. No more financial assistance. No more being the responsible one who fixes problems and mediates conflicts. No more accepting second place to Tommy in every family decision. From now on, Tommy can handle being the good child they've always needed him to be, since he's clearly their priority. I print the letter on my company letterhead, the same professional stationery that announces my new position as Regional Marketing Director. The irony isn't lost on me. My success provides the tools to end my relationship with the people who refuse to celebrate it. By midnight, I'm driving back to their house. Most of the party cars are gone now, just a few stragglers remaining in the driveway. The banner still hangs in the window, and I can see Tommy through the glass collecting gift bags while Mom and Dad clean up around him. I park and walk to their front door, my heart pounding with the finality of what I'm about to do. The envelope feels heavy in my hands, weighted with 28 years of accumulated disappointment and tonight's ultimate betrayal. As I bend to slide the envelope under their door, I hear voices from inside. Mom is talking to someone, probably Aunt Diane, who always stays late to help with cleanup. Thank God we don't have to pretend to care about Lisa's little work thing anymore. Mom's voice carries clearly through the door. Tommy's future actually matters. Her words hit me like a physical blow. Little work thing. 3 years of sacrifice, countless hours of overtime, the achievement I'm most proud of in my professional life, reduced to a little work thing that she had to pretend to care about. Tommy's acceptance to community college, something that required minimal effort and no actual achievement. That's what matters to her. That's what deserved a party with 30 people and custom decorations and relatives driving from other states. I slide the envelope under the door and walk away knowing I'll never have to pretend their approval matters to me again. My phone starts buzzing at 6:47 in the morning, dragging me from the first peaceful sleep I've had in weeks. 38 missed calls, 15 voicemails, dozens of text messages lighting up my screen like an emergency alert system. I make coffee first, letting the notifications pile up while I try to center myself for whatever explosion I'm about to witness. The morning sunlight streaming through my apartment windows feels different today, cleaner somehow, like a weight has been lifted from the atmosphere around me. The first voicemail is from Mom, and her voice sounds panicked in a way I've never heard before. "Lisa, we need to talk right now. Call me back immediately. This is urgent." The timestamp shows she left it at 5:32 in the morning, which means they found my letter sometime after midnight. Dad's message comes next, his tone angry and dismissive. "What you wrote was completely out of line. You're being dramatic and selfish, and you need to apologize to your mother right now. She's been crying all morning because of your tantrum." Tantrum. My carefully worded explanation of their hurtful behavior reduced to a child's tantrum. Even in crisis, he can't acknowledge that I might have legitimate grievances worth considering. Jessica's texts range from confused to accusatory. "Mom is crying and won't tell me what happened. What did you do?" Then, "I read your letter. This is so typical of you to make everything about yourself." And finally, "Tommy didn't do anything wrong. You're being cruel." I scroll through the voicemails, watching the progression from panic to anger to guilt-tripping manipulation. Uncle Paul wants me to think about what I'm doing to the family. Cousin Amanda suggests I'm going through a phase and should reconsider before it's too late. Even Grandmother Helen left a message, her elderly voice shaking as she asks me to please call home and work this out. But it's Tommy's single text message that surprises me most. "I don't understand what I did wrong." For the first time, his response doesn't sound entitled or defensive. He sounds genuinely confused, which makes me wonder if he's truly oblivious to the family dynamics that have shaped our entire lives. Maybe he doesn't realize that his acceptance celebration happened at the expense of my promotion dinner. Maybe he's so accustomed to being the center of attention that he doesn't notice when others get pushed aside. I read my letter one more time, checking for anything I might regret in daylight. Every word still feels accurate and necessary. I'd listed specific examples they couldn't deny: the Christmas gifts, disparity, the vacation planning around Tommy's schedule, the financial support that flows only in his direction. I'd explained how tonight's betrayal wasn't isolated but representative of 28 years of being treated as secondary to Tommy's needs. Most importantly, I'd ended it with clear consequences. Since I wasn't their priority, I was removing myself from their lives. No more financial help when dad's business struggles. No more co-signing loans for Tommy's expenses. No more being the responsible one who fixes everyone's problems while receiving no support for my own goals. My phone rings again. This time it's Jessica, and I actually answer. Lisa, you need to fix this right now, she says without preamble. Mom hasn't stopped crying since she read your letter. Dad is furious. Tommy is confused and asking what he did wrong. You've completely destroyed our family. I didn't destroy anything, I reply calmly. I just stopped participating in something that was already broken. That's not fair. We've always supported you. When I ask, name one time the family celebrated my achievements with the same enthusiasm as Tommy's party last night. Jessica falls silent for a moment. That's different. Tommy needed the encouragement, and I didn't. You're successful. You don't need us to validate every little thing you accomplish. Every little thing. My promotion to regional director is a little thing, just like Mom's little work thing comment last night. My achievements don't count because I'm capable of succeeding without constant family support, while Tommy's minimal efforts deserve celebration because he might not try again if he doesn't receive immediate praise. Jessica, I sent money when Dad couldn't make payroll 2 winters ago. I co-signed Tommy's car loan. I've missed dates, social events, and networking opportunities to attend family gatherings where the conversation centers entirely on Tommy. When was the last time anyone asked about my goals or my struggles or my hopes for the future? Another pause. We talk about your work all the time. No, you politely listen when I mention work, then change the subject to Tommy's latest gaming achievement or what college classes he might take someday. There's a difference between talking about my life and actually caring about it. Jessica's voice gets defensive. You're twisting everything around. We love you just as much as Tommy. Love and priority aren't the same thing. Last night proved which one matters more. It was just bad timing. We didn't know you'd be so upset about missing one dinner. One dinner. My promotion celebration reduced to one dinner that I shouldn't be upset about missing. Never mind that they'd confirmed their attendance. Never mind that they'd known about this dinner for 3 weeks. Never mind that they chose to plan Tommy's party for the exact same night as my achievement celebration. Jessica, I'm tired of being the understanding one. I'm tired of being expected to accept second place in my own family. I'm tired of being treated like my feelings don't matter as long as Tommy's needs are met. So you're just going to cut us off, never speak to us again. I'm going to stop making myself available to people who consistently show me that I'm not a priority. If that means we don't speak, that's the choice you made when you sent that text message last night. Jessica starts crying. This is so selfish, Lisa. Families stick together no matter what. You're right. Families do stick together. But I've been the only one sticking while everyone else orbits around Tommy. I'm done being the moon to his sun. I hang up and turn off my phone. My coffee has gone cold, but the morning still feels brighter than it has in years. Through my apartment windows, I can see the city waking up. People heading to work, living their own independent lives, making their own choices about who deserves their time and energy. For the first time in my adult life, I'm going to be one of those people who puts their own well-being first. The family will survive without me. They'll have to learn to function without the responsible daughter who always sacrifices her needs for theirs. Tommy will have to handle being the good child without me as a contrast to make him look better. And I'll finally get to find out who I am when I'm not constantly trying to earn approval from people who save their enthusiasm for someone else. The strangest part is how peaceful this feels. I expected anger or sadness, but instead I feel relieved. Like I've been holding my breath for 28 years and can finally exhale. My family made their priorities clear last night. Now I'm making mine clear too. At Harrison Marketing Solutions, I try to immerse myself in my new responsibilities, but my personal life keeps bleeding through my professional facade. The corner office that came with my promotion feels like a sanctuary, its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the downtown business district reminding me that there's a whole world beyond family drama. Rachel, my new assistant, brings me coffee and the morning briefings with her usual efficiency. She's 24, fresh out of college, with the kind of eager professionalism I remember having before family obligations started weighing down my ambitions. As she updates me on client meetings and project deadlines, I notice her glancing at my phone, which keeps lighting up with notifications I'm refusing to answer. "Everything okay?" she asks gently. "You seem a little distracted today." I consider giving her the standard professional response about personal matters staying separate from work, but something in her genuine concern breaks through my defenses. "Family stuff," I admit. Sometimes the people who are supposed to support you the most end up being the ones who hurt you the worst. Rachel nods knowingly. I have 3 older brothers who still treat me like I'm 12. Every time I mention my job or my apartment, they act like I'm playing house instead of actually building a career. It's exhausting. Her understanding catches me off guard. "How do you handle it?" "I stopped expecting them to change," she says simply. "Once I accepted that they'll probably never see me as an adult, it stopped hurting so much when they prove me right." Before I can respond, my office phone rings. Rachel checks the caller ID and her expression shifts to confusion. "Someone named Jessica is asking to speak with you. She says it's a family emergency." My stomach drops. Jessica tracked down my work number, which means she's escalating beyond personal boundaries into my professional space. "Transfer her to voicemail, please." Rachel nods and handles the call diplomatically. As she leaves my office, I realize that a 24-year-old assistant just demonstrated better boundary-setting skills than I've managed in 28 years of family relationships. I throw myself into work reviewing market analyses and preparing for the quarterly client presentation that's now my responsibility. The promotion brings a 15% salary increase and oversight of 3 junior marketing associates. These are tangible achievements that no one can minimize or dismiss as little work things. Patricia Hendricks, my boss and the company's vice president of operations, appears in my doorway around 11:30. Patricia is everything I aspire to become professionally, a 50-something woman who built her career in advertising through pure competence and strategic thinking. She's known for her direct communication style and her ability to cut through workplace drama with surgical precision. "Close the door," she says, settling into one of my guest chairs. "You look like someone who's fighting a war on multiple fronts." Patricia's directness has always intimidated other employees, but today it feels like exactly what I need. I close the door and sit across from her, abandoning any pretense of professional composure. "My family chose my brother's community college acceptance over my promotion celebration. I say they sent me a group text during my dinner reservation saying I'm not their priority right now." Patricia's eyebrows rise slightly, but she doesn't look shocked. "What did you do?" "I left them a letter explaining that since I'm not their priority, I'm removing myself from their lives. No more financial support. No more being the family problem solver. No more accepting second place to my brother's minimal achievements." "Good," Patricia says without hesitation. "What was their response?" 38 missed calls accusing me of being dramatic and selfish. "My sister just called here demanding I fix this mess because I'm hurting everyone's feelings." Patricia leans back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "Can I tell you something that might save you about 10 years of therapy?" I nod, grateful for any wisdom from someone who's clearly learned to navigate complex relationships while maintaining professional success. 22 years ago, my sister Claire borrowed $5,000 from me for what she called a business opportunity. It was actually her 3rd attempt at starting a boutique clothing store, and the previous 2 had failed because Claire has no business sense but refuses to admit it. When I suggested she get professional training first, she accused me of being unsupportive and jealous of her entrepreneurial spirit. Patricia's voice takes on a matter-of-fact tone that suggests she's processed this story thoroughly over the years. I gave her the money anyway because family. 6 months later, the store closed and Claire declared bankruptcy. She never mentioned paying me back. But every family gathering after that, she'd make comments about my corporate job being soulless and how she was glad she'd never sold out like I had. My parents supported her narrative because Claire needed encouragement while I was obviously doing fine on my own. What happened? I ask. I stopped going to family events where Claire would be present. I stopped answering calls about her latest financial crisis. I stopped pretending that our relationship was healthy just because we shared DNA. My parents spent 3 years trying to guilt me into being the bigger person and keeping the family together. Patricia stands and walks to my window, looking out at the city below. The hardest part wasn't setting the boundaries. It was maintaining them when everyone expected me to be the mature one who sacrificed her own well-being for family harmony. Do you regret it? I ask. Claire and I have a superficial but pleasant relationship now. She's learned not to ask me for money or criticize my choices, and I've learned not to offer advice she doesn't want. It took 5 years to get there, but it was worth it. My parents eventually realized that enabling Claire's irresponsibility wasn't helping anyone. Patricia returns to her chair and looks at me directly. The people who benefit from dysfunction will always resist your attempts to create healthy boundaries. They'll call you selfish, dramatic, ungrateful, anything to manipulate you back into the role that serves their needs. Her words hit me like a revelation. So you think I did the right thing? I think you finally stopped enabling behavior that was hurting you. Whether it's right or wrong depends on whether you can live with the consequences. My phone buzzes with another call. This time it's Dad's number, and Patricia can see the caller ID from where she's sitting. Don't answer it, she says. If it's truly an emergency, they'll call the police or the hospital. If it's about your letter, they can wait until you're ready to engage on your terms. I let the call go to voicemail, feeling a small thrill of empowerment. For the first time, I'm controlling when and how my family can access me instead of being constantly available for their emotional needs. There's something else I want to discuss, Patricia continues. The Morrison account, the family restaurant chain dealing with succession planning issues. I was going to assign it to David, but I think your recent personal experience might give you a unique insight into family dynamics and power structures. The irony isn't lost on me. My family crisis might actually enhance my professional value by giving me first-hand experience with dysfunctional family systems. I'd like that challenge, I say. Good. The initial consultation is tomorrow at 2. Read through their background materials and think about how family relationships impact business decisions. Sometimes our personal struggles prepare us for professional opportunities we couldn't have handled otherwise. As Patricia leaves my office, I feel more centered than I have in days. My family situation is still unresolved, but at least one authority figure in my life recognizes my worth and supports my decision to prioritize my own well-being. The Morrison account materials reveal a classic family business struggling with generational transition. The aging founder wants to retire but can't decide between his ambitious daughter and his unreliable son as successor. The daughter has an MBA and 10 years of operational experience, while the son has a history of poor decisions but represents the family's traditional male leadership structure. Reading their case study feels like looking into a mirror. Another family prioritizing potential over performance, tradition over merit, sons over daughters who've proven their competence. But this time, I'm not the daughter fighting for recognition. I'm the outside consultant who gets paid to point out dysfunctional patterns and recommend solutions. My phone rings again. This time it's Rachel on the intercom. Your sister is in the lobby, she says. She says she drove 4 hours to see you and won't leave until you talk to her. My peaceful morning at work is about to end. But at least now I have Patricia's wisdom and a new sense of my own worth to guide me through whatever confrontation Jessica has planned. Tell her I'll meet her in the parking garage in 5 minutes, I say, and thank you for not just sending her up. If Jessica wants to escalate this conflict into my workplace, we're going to handle it on my terms, not hers. The parking garage feels like neutral territory concrete and fluorescent lighting, creating a stark backdrop for what's about to be the most honest conversation Jessica and I have ever had. She's waiting by my car, her arms crossed, and her expression set in the same stubborn line she's worn since childhood when she didn't get her way. Jessica looks exhausted. Her usually perfect makeup is smudged around the eyes, and her hair shows signs of a 4-hour drive with the windows down. She's wearing the Northwestern University sweatshirt I bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, which feels like intentional manipulation, reminding me of our sisterly bond while she prepares to attack my character. You couldn't just call me back like a normal person, she says as I approach. I had to drive to your office and basically stalk you at work. You called my workplace demanding to speak with me about a family emergency, I reply calmly. I don't consider your feelings about my boundaries to be an emergency. Mom hasn't eaten since yesterday. Dad is talking about driving down here to drag you home. Tommy keeps asking what he did wrong, and I don't know what to tell him because I don't understand this either. Jessica's voice has the edge of someone who's been designated as the family mediator without volunteering for the role. I recognize the position because I've held it myself for years, the person expected to smooth over conflicts and maintain harmony at the expense of addressing underlying problems. Tell Tommy he didn't do anything wrong, I say. Tell Mom and Dad that my boundaries aren't negotiable, and tell yourself that you don't have to fix relationships that other people broke. That's easy for you to say. You just disappeared and left the rest of us to deal with the fallout. Do you know what it's been like trying to calm everyone down while they blame me for not preventing this? Her frustration feels genuine, and I realize Jessica has been caught in the middle of a situation she didn't create. But her solution is still to pressure me back into dysfunction rather than address the actual problem. Jessica, why do you think it's okay for them to hurt me, but not okay for me to protect myself from being hurt again? She stops mid-sentence, clearly not expecting the question to be turned back on her. That's not what this is about, she says, but her voice lacks conviction. Yes, it is. They chose Tommy's party over my promotion dinner. They planned his celebration for weeks while lying to me about being available. When I expressed hurt through a letter explaining my feelings, their response was to call me dramatic and selfish. Why is their behavior acceptable, but my reaction to their behavior is wrong? Jessica shifts uncomfortably, her defensive posture wavering slightly. It wasn't meant to hurt you. Mom just gets excited about Tommy's achievements because he doesn't have many of them. And what about my achievements? Do I have too many for them to matter? You know that's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Because from where I stand, it looks like the family celebrates Tommy's minimal efforts while taking my success for granted. Last night proved that pattern won't change unless I remove myself from it. Jessica leans against my car, her anger giving way to something that looks like confusion. I don't know how to fix this, Lisa. Everyone is miserable and they're all looking at me to make you come back and apologize. Why do I need to apologize for setting boundaries around behavior that hurt me? Because you're our family. Families forgive each other and work things out. You don't just cut people off because of one bad night. This wasn't one bad night, Jessica. This was 28 years of being treated as less important than Tommy. Last night was just the final proof that nothing will change. I lean against the car next to her, and for a moment, we're just two sisters trying to understand each other instead of opponents in a family war. Can I ask you something honestly? I say. When was the last time Mom and Dad celebrated one of your achievements with the same enthusiasm they showed for Tommy's party? Jessica is quiet for a long moment. That's different. I don't accomplish the kind of things that deserve big celebrations. What does that mean? You're the successful one with the corporate job and the fancy apartment. Tommy is the one who needs encouragement. I'm just in between. Her answer reveals something I hadn't considered. Jessica has been overlooked too, just differently. She's not the celebrated son or the successful daughter. She's the middle child, whose achievements don't merit attention because they're neither inspiring comebacks nor impressive successes. Jessica, what did you want to do before you started working 2 jobs to help with family expenses? She looks surprised by the question. I was going to nursing school, but that got put on hold when Dad's business struggled and Mom needed help with Tommy's car payments. You were in nursing school when I finished my prerequisites 2 years ago. I was supposed to start the clinical program last fall, but the family needed me to work instead. Mom said I could always go back to school later, but Tommy's opportunities couldn't wait. The pieces clicked together with devastating clarity. Jessica sacrificed her education to support Tommy's lifestyle, and the family framed it as her being a good daughter rather than acknowledging the unfairness of the situation. Jessica, you gave up nursing school so Tommy could have a car and an allowance. Her defensive mask slips completely. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. But then there was always another expense, another crisis, another reason why Tommy needed support and I needed to be the responsible one. And you're working 2 jobs now. Retail during the day, restaurant serving at night. I'm saving money to reapply for nursing school, but every time I get close to having enough saved, something comes up with the family finances. I feel a surge of anger on Jessica's behalf. So you're supporting Tommy's expenses while putting your own future on hold, and they praised you for being mature and selfless. They didn't want me to sacrifice anything, she says weakly. It was my choice. Was it really, or did they present Tommy's needs as more urgent than your goals, and you felt guilty pursuing your dreams while he struggled? Jessica starts crying, and I realize she's been carrying the same burden I have, just wearing it differently. Where I responded to family pressure by overachieving professionally, she responded by sacrificing personally. I don't know how to stop, she whispers. If I go back to school, who will help with Tommy's expenses? Who will be there when mom needs someone to talk to about dad's business problems? Who will keep the family together? Jessica, keeping the family together isn't your job. It's not mine either. We've both been sacrificing our futures to enable Tommy's present, and it's not helping anyone in the long run. She wipes her eyes with the sleeve of my Northwestern sweatshirt, and I remember buying it for her because she'd mentioned wanting to visit my alma mater someday. I'd encouraged her to think about transferring there after nursing school, but the conversation never went anywhere because her plans kept getting derailed by family obligations. What if I can't do it? She asks. What if I go back to school and fail? At least now I'm helping the family. What if you succeed? What if you become the nurse you wanted to be and show Tommy that independence is possible? What if you stop enabling his dependence and force him to grow up? Jessica looks at me with something that might be hope. You really think I should go back to school? I think you should stop setting yourself on fire to keep Tommy warm. We stand in silence for a moment, both processing how our family's dysfunction has shaped our choices in ways we're just beginning to understand. Lisa, Jessica says, finally, can I tell you something? I nod. When I saw you had your own apartment and your own career, I was jealous. But I was also proud. You proved it was possible to build a life outside of the family's expectations. Maybe that's why they're so upset about your letter. You're showing them what independence looks like, and it scares them. Her insight surprises me. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm tired of being the family mediator. I'm tired of sacrificing my goals for everyone else's comfort. Maybe it's time to learn from my big sister. What does that mean? Jessica straightens up, and for the first time in our conversation, she looks determined instead of defeated. It means I'm going to stop trying to fix this situation and start figuring out how to get back into nursing school. As she walks toward her car, I realize our confrontation has become something else entirely, a moment of mutual recognition between two sisters who've been trapped in the same dysfunctional pattern, just playing different roles. The parking garage feels less stark now, like it's witnessed something important shifting between us. For the first time in years, Jessica and I are on the same side. Jessica texts me that evening, asking if we can meet for coffee the next morning before I go to work. Her message is different from her earlier angry demands. This time, she's asking, not demanding, and her tone suggests she has something important to share. We meet at Corner Cafe, a small place halfway between my apartment and her retail job. Jessica looks better than she did in the parking garage yesterday. Rested and somehow more present, like she's made a decision that's lifted a weight from her shoulders. I need to tell you some things about the family finances, she says without preamble, sliding a manila folder across the table. Things mom and dad never told you because they figured you were doing fine and didn't need to worry about family problems. Inside the folder are bank statements, credit card bills, and loan documents that paint a picture of financial chaos I never suspected. Dad's contracting business hasn't just hit slow patches. It's been consistently unprofitable for over 2 years. The family has been surviving on credit cards, personal loans, and money borrowed from relatives. Jessica, how long have you known about this? Since I started working 2 jobs. Mom asked me to help with household expenses, and when I saw the bills, I realized how bad things really were. They've been hiding it from you because they were embarrassed and didn't want to burden their successful daughter with family problems. The statements show a pattern of financial decisions that prioritize Tommy's expenses over basic necessities. While they've been borrowing money to pay utilities and groceries, Tommy received a $500 gaming chair for his birthday and a $700 computer upgrade for Christmas. Jessica, they took out a second mortgage on the house. Last spring, Dad said it was to renovate the kitchen, but the money went toward paying off credit cards and covering Tommy's car insurance for the year. They figured property values would keep rising and they could refinance again if needed. I study the loan documents with growing horror. The second mortgage has an adjustable rate that will increase significantly after the initial period. Based on Dad's irregular income and their existing debt, they're heading toward foreclosure within 18 months. Do they realize how serious this is? Jessica shakes her head. Dad keeps saying his business will pick up once the economy improves. Mom thinks Tommy will graduate and get a good job that will help with family expenses. They're living in a fantasy where everything works out without major changes. The credit card statements reveal purchases that make my stomach turn. While I was sending money for emergency repairs and Jessica was working 2 jobs to help with expenses, they were buying Tommy luxury items and funding what they called investments in his future. Look at this, Jessica says, pointing to a particular statement. $300 at GameStop the same week they asked me to cover the electric bill because they were short on cash. And this was when, 2 months ago, the same month you sent $500 to help with Dad's business expenses. The betrayal feels complete. Not only have they been lying about their priorities, but they've been using my financial support and Jessica's sacrifice to subsidize Tommy's lifestyle while hiding the true scope of their financial irresponsibility. There's more, Jessica says, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Tommy doesn't know how bad things are either. He thinks the family is just going through a rough patch that will resolve itself. He has no idea his expenses are pushing them toward bankruptcy. What about the college acceptance? Have you seen any actual documentation from the school? Jessica reaches into the folder and pulls out a single sheet of computer paper with the state university logo printed at the top. It's obviously fake. The formatting is wrong. The signature looks printed rather than signed, and the acceptance date is for the wrong semester. I found this in Tommy's room when Mom asked me to do his laundry. It's not real, Lisa. He never actually applied to any schools. The final piece of the puzzle falls into place. Tommy has been lying about his future while the family destroys their present to support his fictional plans. Everyone has been sacrificing for a dream that exists only in Tommy's imagination and their parents' desperate hope. How long do you think this has been going on? I think Tommy started lying about college applications last year when everyone was pressuring him about his future. Instead of admitting he wasn't ready or didn't know what he wanted to do, he created this story about getting into state university and let everyone build their hopes around it. Jessica pulls out her phone and shows me screenshots of Tommy's online activity. Bank records from his checking account show regular payments to online gaming platforms and gambling websites. His browser history, which she accessed from the family computer, reveals research into sports betting and cryptocurrency trading rather than college preparation. Jessica, he's been gambling for at least 6 months. Small amounts at first, but it's been increasing. Last week alone, he spent $200 on some betting app, money Mom gave him for textbooks he's supposedly going to need for college. The scope of the deception takes my breath away. Tommy isn't just failing to launch. He's actively deceiving everyone while developing what appears to be a gambling addiction. The family isn't supporting his education. They're funding his self-destruction. Have you told Mom and Dad any of this? I tried to bring up concerns about Tommy's spending, but they accused me of being jealous and unsupportive. When I suggested they ask to see his college correspondence directly from the school, Mom said I was being paranoid and that Tommy deserved their trust. Jessica closes the folder and looks at me directly. They don't want to see the truth because the truth means admitting they've been enabling him instead of helping him. It's easier to believe that their sacrifices are investments in his future than to face the fact that he's been lying to them for months. What changed your mind about telling me this? Yesterday, when you asked me about nursing school, and I realized how much of my life I've put on hold for Tommy's fake future. I started looking at everything more critically, and I couldn't ignore what I was seeing. The coffee shop around us buzzes with normal morning activity, people grabbing caffeine before work, students studying for exams, retirees reading newspapers. Everyone living their own authentic lives while my family has been trapped in an elaborate fiction that's destroying their financial future. Jessica, we have to tell them. They won't believe us. They'll say we're being cruel and trying to sabotage Tommy's success. They've invested too much hope in his story to let go of it easily, even if it means losing their house. They don't think they're going to lose their house. They think Tommy's going to graduate and get a good job and help solve all their problems. They need that hope more than they need the truth. I realize that Jessica has been carrying this burden alone while trying to protect everyone from painful realities. She's been the family's financial lifeline while watching them make increasingly destructive decisions based on lies she couldn't expose without being dismissed as jealous or unsupportive. What do you want to happen now? I ask. I want to stop enabling this disaster. I want to go back to school and build my own future instead of sacrificing it for someone else's fantasy. I want Tommy to get real help for his problems instead of more money to make them worse. And I want Mom and Dad to face reality before they lose everything. Jessica's voice has a strength I haven't heard from her before. But I can't do any of that as long as I'm the family mediator trying to keep everyone happy. I need to learn how to set boundaries like you did, even if it means they'll be angry with both of us, especially then. Maybe being angry with us will force them to look at the real problems instead of blaming the people who are trying to help. As we leave the coffee shop, I realize that my decision to set boundaries has created space for Jessica to recognize her own need for change. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a family is refuse to enable their dysfunction even when it feels like abandonment. The truth about Tommy and the family finances feels like a bomb waiting to explode, but maybe some things need to be destroyed before they can be rebuilt on a foundation of honesty instead of lies. The ripple effects of my letter spread through our extended family network faster than I anticipated, creating unexpected alliances and revealing long-buried resentments that had been festering beneath the surface of family gatherings for years. Cousin Amanda calls me Wednesday evening, her voice shaking with what sounds like relief rather than anger. Lisa, I need to thank you for what you did. Your letter gave me permission to admit something I've been thinking for years. Amanda and I haven't spoken much since college, but we were close as children before family dynamics started pulling everyone into different camps. She's 2 years younger than me, equally accomplished professionally, and has always seemed to have her life together from the outside. What do you mean? I ask. I've been avoiding family gatherings for the past year because I couldn't stand listening to everyone celebrate Tommy's video game achievements while completely ignoring the fact that I just finished my master's degree in public health. When I mentioned my thesis research at Christmas, Uncle Robert changed the subject to ask Tommy about his latest gaming tournament scores. Amanda's voice gained strength as she continues. I thought I was being petty getting upset about something so small. But when I saw your letter, the way you laid out all those specific examples, I realized I wasn't crazy. There really is a pattern of treating Tommy's minimal efforts as more important than anyone else's actual accomplishments. Her validation feels like a lifeline. Someone else has been watching the same family dynamics and drawing the same conclusions. Have other people been talking about this? More than you know. Cousin Sarah texted me yesterday saying she's glad someone finally said what everyone was thinking. Uncle Paul told me privately that he stopped contributing money to family events because he suspected it was all going toward Tommy's expenses instead of being shared fairly. This surprises me. Uncle Paul is Dad's older brother and generally considered the family success story. He owns a small but profitable accounting firm and has always been generous with holiday gifts and family emergency funds. Paul said that He's been watching the financial dynamics for years. He told me that every time he gives money for family expenses, it somehow ends up funding Tommy's hobbies while the actual bills get passed to other family members. He's been deliberately limiting his contributions because he didn't want to enable what he called destructive parenting. The conversation reveals a hidden network of family members who've been questioning the Tommy-centric dynamics but staying quiet to avoid conflict. People have been making their own adjustments, reducing their involvement, limiting their financial contributions, staying away from gatherings, rather than confronting the problem directly. Amanda, why didn't anyone ever say anything? Because your parents made it clear that questioning Tommy's treatment was equivalent to attacking him personally. Any criticism got labeled as jealousy or lack of family loyalty. It was easier to just distance ourselves than to fight that battle. Thursday morning brings a call from grandmother Helen, whose voice carries the authority of someone who's watched 83 years of family dynamics and isn't easily fooled by surface appearances. Lisa, dear, I'd like you to come visit me this afternoon. We need to have a conversation that's long overdue. Helen's house feels like a museum of family history with photos spanning 4 generations covering every available surface. She's prepared tea and cookies like we're having a pleasant social visit, but her expression suggests this will be anything but casual. I owe you an apology, she says, without preamble, settling into her favorite armchair, surrounded by pictures of all her grandchildren. I've been watching your parents favor Tommy for years, and I should have spoken up sooner. This catches me completely off guard. Helen has always been the family matriarch, the person whose approval everyone seeks, and whose disapproval everyone fears. Her support of Tommy's party seemed like final proof that the entire family shared my parents' priorities. You notice the favoritism. Child, I lived through this same pattern with my own children. My mother favored sons over daughters, and I swore I wouldn't repeat that mistake with my own family. But I watched your mother do exactly what my mother did, protecting the boys from consequences while expecting the girls to be strong enough to handle whatever life throws at them. Helen stands and walks to a photo of our family from last Christmas, the same photo that sits on my coffee table. But she's pointing to details I never noticed before. Look at the body language in this picture. Everyone is focused on Tommy, arranged around him like he's the center of the universe. You're standing slightly apart, smiling but separate. Jessica is between you and your parents like she's trying to bridge a gap. This photo tells the whole story. She's right. In the picture, Tommy is relaxed and genuinely happy, surrounded by family members who are all oriented toward him. I'm smiling, but there's distance in my posture. Jessica looks tense, caught between competing loyalties. I participated in Tommy's celebration because I thought it might be good for him to feel successful at something, Helen continues. But I realized afterward that success built on lies and at the expense of other family members' achievements isn't really success at all. You knew the college acceptance was fake. Helen gives me a look that suggests I've underestimated her awareness. Dear, I raised 5 children and helped raise 12 grandchildren. I know the difference between genuine achievement and wishful thinking. Tommy's grades, his work ethic, his approach to responsibility, none of it suggested he was ready for college, even community college. She returns to her chair and fixes me with the direct gaze that used to terrify me as a child when I'd done something wrong. But here's what I really need to tell you. I've been planning to change my will to ensure you and Jessica receive equal treatment, but I realize the damage is being done now in daily life, not just in inheritance matters. What do you mean? Your parents are repeating their own parents' mistakes. Your father was the golden child in his family, handsome, charming, but never held accountable for his poor decisions. His sister, your Aunt Carol, was the responsible one who cleaned up his messes and never received credit for her achievements. She ended up bitter and resentful, and she died without ever feeling truly valued by her family. Helen's story reframes my father's behavior in a new light. He's not consciously choosing to favor Tommy. He's recreating the family dynamics that shaped his own childhood, probably without realizing the pattern he's perpetuating. I don't want you to become Aunt Carol, Helen says firmly, I don't want you to spend your life being the responsible one who never gets celebrated only to die feeling like your family took you for granted. So you support what I did. I support you protecting yourself from a pattern that's been damaging women in this family for 3 generations. Your letter reminded me of something I should have done 60 years ago. Helen stands and walks to an antique writing desk by the window. She pulls out a yellowed envelope and hands it to me. I wrote this letter to my own parents in 1963 when I was 25 and tired of being treated as less important than my brothers. I never sent it, and I regretted that cowardice my entire life. I opened the envelope carefully, unfolding pages written in Helen's neat handwriting. The letter could have been written yesterday. It describes the same patterns of favoritism, the same expectation that daughters should sacrifice for sons, the same dismissal of women's achievements in favor of men's potential. Helen, this is almost identical to what I wrote, because the pattern is almost identical. Your courage to send your letter gave me hope that maybe this generation of women in our family will break the cycle instead of perpetuating it. She takes the letter back and, to my surprise, walks to her fireplace and tosses it into the flames. I don't need to carry that regret anymore. You did what I should have done decades ago. As I leave Helen's house, I realize that my decision to set boundaries has revealed a much larger pattern of family dysfunction spanning multiple generations. I'm not just protecting myself from my parents' favoritism, I'm refusing to accept a role that's been damaging women in my family for over half a century. The extended family's reaction isn't the united condemnation I expected. Instead, it's a complex mix of support from people who've been quietly struggling with the same issues, relief from relatives who feel permission to admit their own concerns, and recognition that my letter exposed problems that go much deeper than one disappointing dinner. For the first time since sending that letter, I feel like I'm part of a larger story of change, rather than just an isolated act of rebellion. Armed with Jessica's documentation and Helen's encouragement, I decide to conduct my own investigation into Tommy's actual situation. My professional experience with market research has taught me how to gather and verify information systematically, and I apply those skills to uncovering the truth about my brother's lies. The fake acceptance letter Jessica found is just the beginning. Using my company's database access and professional network, I discover that Tommy never submitted applications to any educational institutions, including the community college he claims accepted him. The state university admissions office confirms they have no record of his application when I call posing as an employer verifying educational credentials. More disturbing is what I find about his financial activities. The bank statements Jessica shared show regular transfers to online gambling platforms, cryptocurrency exchanges, and gaming sites where he's been spending increasingly large amounts of money. What started as $20 bets 6 months ago has escalated to $200 wagers on sports games and cryptocurrency speculation. I create a detailed timeline of Tommy's deception, cross-referencing his spending patterns with the money he's received from family members. The correlation is devastating. Every time mom gives him money for textbooks or school supplies, it disappears into online gambling within 24 hours. The car insurance dad pays annually gets matched by equivalent gambling losses the same week. But the most shocking discovery comes when I access the family's mail delivery records through a legitimate background check service. Tommy has been intercepting mail addressed to our parents, including collection notices, bank correspondence, and what appear to be foreclosure warnings from their mortgage company. The mortgage documents Jessica showed me tell only part of the story. The house is actually in much worse financial jeopardy than even she realized. The second mortgage has a balloon payment due in 8 months that my parents seem completely unaware of. Based on Dad's irregular income and their existing debt load, they're heading toward foreclosure within 6 months, not 8 Tommy has been hiding this information while continuing to accept money for his fictional college expenses. He knows the family is facing financial disaster, but he's been protecting his own access to funds by keeping our parents ignorant of the true situation. I document everything with the same thoroughness I'd use for a client presentation. Screenshots of banking records, verified communications with educational institutions, postal service records showing intercepted mail, and a financial analysis projecting the family's timeline toward bankruptcy. The weight of holding this information feels crushing. Tommy isn't just lying about his future. He's actively deceiving everyone while the family destroys their financial security to support his addiction. Every dollar they spend on his fake college preparation is a dollar they don't have for the mortgage payments that could save their house. I think about calling my parents directly, but I know they'll dismiss any criticism of Tommy as jealousy from their bitter daughter who cut them off over one dinner. They need to hear this information in a context where they can't immediately reject the messenger. Instead, I decide to approach them through a neutral location and professional presentation. I ask them to meet me at Riverside Cafe, a quiet place near their house where we can talk privately without the emotional, charged atmosphere of family territory. Dad arrives looking exhausted and defensive. Mom's eyes are red from crying, and she won't make direct eye contact with me. The past week has clearly taken a toll on both of them, but their body language suggests they're here to convince me to apologize rather than to listen to my concerns. Lisa, we're glad you're finally ready to work this out, Dad says before I can speak. Your mother has been devastated by your letter, and we think you'll feel better once you apologize for the harsh things you wrote. I'm not here to apologize, I say calmly, placing a manila folder on the table between us. I'm here to share information about Tommy's actual situation that I think you need to know. Mom's defensive posture immediately intensifies. We don't want to hear more criticism of your brother. He's been doing his best, and your jealousy isn't helping anyone. I open the folder and place the fake acceptance letter where they can both see it clearly. This acceptance letter from State University is fraudulent. The formatting is wrong, the signature is printed rather than signed, and the dates don't match the school's actual acceptance timeline. I verified with their admissions office that Tommy never applied. Dad picks up the letter, studying it with confusion rather than immediate denial. This came in the mail addressed to Tommy. How could it be fake? Because Tommy created it on a computer and planted it where you'd find it. He's been lying about applying to colleges for over a year. I show them the banking records documenting Tommy's gambling activities, the intercepted mail that proves he's been hiding their financial correspondence, and the mortgage documents that reveal how close they are to foreclosure. Mom's face goes through a series of expressions: confusion, denial, shock, and finally devastation as the evidence accumulates beyond dispute. Dad stares at the papers as like they're written in a foreign language he's trying to translate. He's been gambling, Mom whispers, looking at the bank statements. All those times I gave him money for textbooks. And he's been hiding mail from the bank, I continue gently. You have a balloon payment due on your second mortgage in 8 months. Based on these records, Tommy has been intercepting notices that would have given you advance warning to plan for this payment. Dad's hands shake as he examines the mortgage documents. We thought we had 2 years before this payment was due. The loan officer said. The loan officer probably sent several notices updating the payment schedule. Tommy has been intercepting those notices along with other mail that would have alerted you to the severity of your financial situation. The devastation on their faces is painful to watch, but I force myself to continue. They need to understand the complete scope of the deception before they can make informed decisions about how to respond. I'm not sharing this to hurt you, I say. I'm sharing it because you deserve to know the truth before you lose your house. Tommy needs help for his gambling problem, not more money to feed his addiction. Mom breaks down, completely sobbing into her hands while Dad sits in stunned silence. The family narrative they've been living in, the responsible parents supporting their son's educational future, has just collapsed into a reality where they've been enabling their son's self-destruction while racing toward financial ruin. Why didn't he tell us he was struggling? Mom asks between sobs. We would have helped him find real solutions. Because admitting he was struggling would have meant disappointing you. I explain. It was easier to create a fantasy that made you proud than to ask for help with problems that would have worried you. Dad finally speaks, his voice hollow with shock. How long have you known about this? I only discovered the full scope this week after Jessica shared some concerning financial information with me. She's been trying to help hold the family together while watching Tommy's expenses push you toward bankruptcy. Jessica knew. Mom looks up with red eyes. Why didn't she tell us? Because every time she tried to express concerns about Tommy's spending or ask questions about his college plans, you accused her of being jealous and unsupportive. You made it clear that questioning Tommy was equivalent to attacking him. The cafe around us continues its normal afternoon routine while my parents absorb the destruction of their hopes and assumptions. Other families are having ordinary conversations about ordinary problems, while mine grapples with the revelation that our golden child has been systematically deceiving us for months. What do we do now? Dad asks, his voice barely audible. Before I can answer, the cafe door chimes and Tommy walks in. He's clearly followed Dad's car here, probably expecting to find a reconciliation meeting where his parents convince me to apologize and return to normal family dynamics. Instead, he walks into the middle of his own exposure where 6 months of lies are laid out in neat piles of evidence on a table where his parents sit in shock and his sister holds documentation of his deception. Tommy's face goes white as he recognizes the papers on the table. The fake acceptance letter, the bank statements, the intercepted mail, all the evidence of his elaborate fiction spread out where he can't deny or minimize it. I can explain, he says, but his voice lacks conviction. The moment of truth has arrived, and for the first time in his life, Tommy can't rely on family protection to shield him from the consequences of his choices. Tommy stands frozen in the cafe doorway, his face cycling through expressions of panic denial and something that might be relief. The weight of maintaining his lies for months has clearly taken a toll. He looks thinner than I remember, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous energy that suggests he hasn't been sleeping well. Mom, Dad, I can explain everything, he says, sliding into the empty chair at our table without invitation. His hands shake as he reaches for the papers, but Dad pulls them back protectively. Explain what Tommy... Mom's voice is raw from crying, but carries an edge I've never heard her use with him before. Explain why you've been lying to us for months. Explain why you've been gambling away the money we gave you for college. Explain why you've been hiding our mail while we're heading toward foreclosure. Tommy's careful facade crumbles completely. I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just buying some time while I figured out what I really wanted to do. Everyone was so excited about me going to college, and I didn't know how to tell you I wasn't ready. So you decided to lie instead. Dad's anger is building, his voice getting louder despite our public setting. You let us spend money we don't have on a future that doesn't exist while our house is about to be foreclosed on. I didn't know about the house. Tommy's voice cracks. I thought hiding the mail was protecting you from stress while I worked everything out. I thought if I could just get lucky with some bets, I could pay back what I borrowed and actually apply to schools for real. The gambling addiction becomes clear through his explanation. What started as small bets to kill time while avoiding difficult conversations about his future escalated into increasingly desperate attempts to win enough money to make his lies become reality. Tommy, I say gently, hiding the mail wasn't protecting them. It was preventing them from making informed decisions about their finances. They could have been working with the bank on payment modifications or refinancing options if they'd known about the balloon payment. He turns to me with a mixture of anger and desperation. This is all your fault. Everything was fine until you wrote that letter and stirred up trouble. Everyone was happy. Everyone was living in a fantasy, I reply calmly, and fantasies don't pay mortgage payments. Mom reaches across the table and takes Tommy's hands, forcing him to look at her. Tommy, we need you to tell us the truth about everything. How much money have you spent gambling? What other lies have you told us? What mail have you been hiding? The full confession takes almost an hour. Tommy admits to gambling away over $3,000 in family money over the past 6 months. He's been intercepting not just bank mail, but also collection notices for credit cards they thought were current insurance policy, cancellation warnings, and official correspondence from Dad's business creditors. Most shocking is his admission that he's been struggling with depression and anxiety for over a year, but was afraid to seek help because he didn't want to disappoint the family that saw him as their bright future. The gambling started as an escape from those feelings and escalated when early wins made him believe he could solve both his emotional problems and the family's financial problems through betting. I kept thinking if I could just win enough money, I could pay for real college applications and pay back what I'd borrowed, and nobody would have to know I'd been struggling, he explains through tears. Every time I lost, I thought the next bet would be the one that fixed everything. Dad's anger softens into something that looks like heartbreak. Son, why didn't you tell us you were depressed? We would have found help for you. Because you were so proud of me for getting into college. Because Jessica was working 2 jobs to help with family expenses and Lisa was sending money when business was slow. Because everyone was sacrificing things for my future and I couldn't admit that future was fake. Tommy's breakdown reveals the devastating pressure he's been under to live up to expectations that were never realistic for someone dealing with untreated mental health issues. The family's investment in his success became a trap that made honest communication impossible. Tommy, Mom says firmly, we're going to get you help for the depression and the gambling, but we can't do that if you keep lying to us about what's really happening. Are you going to kick me out? He asks, his voice small and scared. We're going to create a plan that helps you get better while also dealing with the financial crisis you helped create, Dad replies. But that means no more gambling, no more lies, and professional help for your problems. I pull out my phone and call Patricia, explaining that I have a family emergency and need to reschedule my afternoon meetings. She understands immediately and offers to cover my client calls. Over the next 2 hours, we develop a family crisis action plan. Tommy will enter a treatment program for gambling addiction and depression, which I offer to help fund. He'll also get a legitimate part-time job and contribute his earnings toward the family's debt, rather than continuing to be a financial drain. Jessica, who arrives after receiving our emergency text, agrees to help coordinate Tommy's treatment while also applying for financial aid to return to nursing school. She'll continue working, but her earnings will go toward her own education rather than subsidizing Tommy's lifestyle. Mom and Dad will attend family counseling to address the communication patterns that enabled this crisis. They'll also meet with a financial counselor to develop a realistic plan for addressing their debt and potentially saving their house. Most importantly, we establish new family ground rules. No more secrets about finances. No more protection of family members from natural consequences of their choices. No more sacrificing one person's needs for another person's wants. This is going to be hard, Jessica says as we prepare to leave the cafe, learning how to be honest with each other after years of protecting each other from difficult truths. But it's better than the alternative, Tommy adds quietly. I've been miserable lying to everyone. Even when you believed my lies, I felt guilty all the time. As we walk to our cars, Mom approaches me privately. Lisa, I owe you an apology for more than just missing your dinner. I've been so focused on protecting Tommy that I forgot to celebrate you. Your success didn't need my protection, but it deserved my recognition. Mom, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just glad we're finally being honest with each other. Your letter saved us, she continues. If you hadn't forced this confrontation, we would have lost the house without ever understanding why. Tommy would have continued gambling, Jessica would have sacrificed her future indefinitely, and you would have eventually cut us off permanently. Dad joins us, looking older than he did this morning, but somehow more present. Your boundaries weren't mean, Lisa. They were necessary. We needed to face consequences for our choices before we could make better ones. The family crisis isn't resolved yet, but for the first time in years, we're addressing real problems instead of maintaining comfortable illusions. Tommy has a long road ahead dealing with his addiction and mental health issues. Mom and dad face difficult financial decisions that will require major lifestyle changes. Jessica has to balance helping the family with pursuing her own goals. But we're doing it with honesty instead of denial, which makes even the difficult conversations feel more hopeful than the false optimism we've been living with. My phone buzzes with a text from Patricia. Family emergency, handled okay. I have some exciting news to share when you're back in the office tomorrow. I realized that while I've been dealing with my family's crisis, my professional life has continued moving forward. The promotion that started this whole situation has opened doors I haven't even discovered yet. For the first time, I'm managing my family relationships as an adult, with boundaries, rather than as a child seeking approval. It feels scary and empowering at the same time. The next morning, Patricia calls me into her office with an expression that suggests she's excited about something, but trying to contain her enthusiasm until she can gauge my reaction. "How are you holding up after yesterday?" she asks, closing her office door and settling into her chair. "Better than expected. My family is finally addressing real problems instead of avoiding them. It's messy, but it feels honest for the first time in years." Patricia nods approvingly. "Good, because I have news that might complicate your personal situation, and I want to make sure you're in a position to make a clear-headed decision." She slides a formal-looking document across her desk. It's a promotion offer. Vice President of Strategic Development overseeing the company's Midwest expansion. The salary increase is substantial, nearly doubling my current income. But the position requires relocation to Chicago within 8 weeks. "Patricia, this is incredible, but the timing..." "I know, your family is in crisis and this opportunity would take you 4 hours away just when they're starting to deal with their problems honestly. That's why I want you to think carefully about what choice serves your long-term interests. The offer represents everything I've worked toward professionally: executive-level responsibility, strategic decision-making, authority, and the kind of salary that would make me financially independent of any family drama forever. But accepting means leaving Jessica to navigate the family healing process alone and potentially abandoning Tommy when he's finally ready to get real help. How long do I have to decide?" 2 weeks. But Lisa, I need you to consider something important. Your family spent years making decisions based on what Tommy needed rather than what was best for everyone. Don't fall into the same pattern by sacrificing your career advancement for their crisis. Her point hits home. I've set boundaries around being the family's financial support system, but I haven't addressed my tendency to prioritize their emotional needs over my own professional goals. What would you do, I ask? 22 years ago, I took a similar position that required moving away from my family during a difficult period. My sister was struggling with addiction, my parents were dealing with my father's early onset dementia, and everyone expected me to stay close and help manage the crisis. Patricia walks to her window, looking out at the city skyline. I took the job anyway. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but it was also the smartest. My family learned to function without me as their primary problem solver. My sister got professional help instead of family enabling, and I built the career that eventually allowed me to provide real support rather than just emotional labor. Did your family forgive you for leaving? Eventually, but more importantly, I proved to myself that I could prioritize my own future without being selfish or uncaring. My success didn't hurt my family. It forced them to develop healthier coping strategies. I spend the rest of the week researching the Chicago position while attending family therapy sessions and helping coordinate Tommy's treatment plan. The juxtaposition feels surreal, discussing family communication patterns in therapy while simultaneously preparing for a career move that would remove me from daily family dynamics. Tommy enters an intensive outpatient program for gambling addiction and depression. The first week is difficult. He goes through withdrawal symptoms from both the gambling dopamine hits and the stress of facing reality without escapist behaviors. But he also seems relieved to stop maintaining his elaborate lies. I forgot how exhausting it was to keep track of all the stories I told different people. He admits during one family session, I was constantly worried someone would ask me a question I couldn't answer without admitting I was lying. Jessica begins the process of reapplying to nursing school using financial aid calculators to determine how she can fund her education without relying on family support. She's nervous but determined, and seeing her research programs and deadlines reminds me of my own college application process years ago. I had forgotten how exciting it feels to plan for a future you actually want. She tells me after a particularly productive session with the nursing school advisor. I've been so focused on managing everyone else's problems that I stopped thinking about my own possibilities. Mom and Dad attend their first financial counseling session where they learn the full scope of their debt and develop a realistic timeline for addressing it. The news isn't good. They'll likely need to sell the house and downsize significantly, but having accurate information allows them to make informed decisions rather than hoping for magical solutions. The counselor said the second mortgage balloon payment would have forced a foreclosure anyway. Dad tells me after their appointment, even if Tommy hadn't been gambling, we were already in trouble. At least now we can plan for a controlled sale instead of losing everything to the bank. During the second week of family therapy, our counselor, Dr. Martinez, addresses the decision I'm facing about the Chicago position. Lisa, you've made significant progress setting boundaries with your family. Now you're facing a test of whether you can maintain those boundaries when your family appears to be improving. What do you mean? Families in crisis often make rapid improvements when they're forced to face consequences for their dysfunction. But those improvements can become a new form of emotional manipulation if family members feel guilty about pursuing their own goals during the healing process. Dr. Martinez looks around the room at my family members who are all listening intently. Everyone in this family has used Lisa as a stabilizing force when things got difficult. Now that you're learning healthier communication patterns, there might be pressure, subtle or explicit, for Lisa to stay available as backup support while you practice new skills. Mom shifts uncomfortably. We would never ask Lisa to sacrifice her career for us. You might not ask directly, Dr. Martinez replies, but if Lisa feels guilty about leaving during your recovery process, she could end up making that sacrifice anyway. And if you rely on her presence as motivation to maintain your progress, you're still using her as a crutch instead of developing real independence. The session becomes a crucial turning point. Each family member has to articulate their support for my career decision regardless of their personal preferences. It's harder for them than I expected. I want Lisa to stay, Tommy admits. Having her nearby while I'm in treatment feels safer, but I know that's selfish. She's been putting her life on hold for family stuff long enough. Jessica is more conflicted. I'm scared about managing Mom and Dad's emotions while going back to school myself. It would be easier if Lisa was here to help. But I also know I need to learn how to handle family stress without depending on her to fix everything. Mom and Dad struggle the most with supporting my potential move, but eventually reach a breakthrough when Dad admits, "We've been using Lisa as our family insurance policy, the responsible one who would always be there if things got really bad. That's not fair to her, and it's not healthy for us." By the end of the second week, I realized the Chicago position isn't just a career opportunity. It's a test of whether I can maintain my boundaries even when my family appears to be making positive changes. The deciding factor comes during a conversation with Helen, who calls to check on my decision-making process. "Dear, I've been thinking about your situation," she says. "Your family is making progress, but they're making progress because you force them to face consequences. If you stay nearby out of guilt or obligation, you might inadvertently enable them to become dependent on your presence rather than truly independent. But what if they backslide without me here to help? Then they'll have to learn to get back on track themselves, just like people do in healthy families. Your presence shouldn't be necessary for their continued growth." Helen's perspective clarifies my decision. Taking the Chicago position isn't abandoning my family during their recovery. It's completing the boundary setting process I started with my letter. I accept the promotion. The VP position announcement feels surreal as Patricia and I review the transition timeline. 8 weeks to wrap up my current client responsibilities, train my replacement, and relocate to Chicago for the Midwest expansion launch. The salary increase would put me in the top 10% of income earners in my age group, and the professional growth opportunities could position me for a C-suite role within 5 years. But accepting means missing Tommy's graduation from the gambling addiction program, Jessica's nursing school interview, and my parents' first real family Christmas in years, where everyone is being honest about their situation. I keep thinking I should wait until next year, I tell Patricia during our transition planning meeting. Give them time to stabilize before I move away. Patricia sets down her coffee and looks at me directly. Lisa, can I share something from my experience managing family businesses? I nod, recognizing her tone that means she's about to deliver insight that might be uncomfortable but necessary. The most common mistake successful adult children make is believing their presence is necessary for their family's continued functioning. They become so accustomed to being the family stabilizer that they can't imagine the system working without them. She pulls out a file folder I recognize. It contains materials from the Morrison account, the family restaurant chain dealing with succession planning. The Morrison family has been struggling with this exact dynamic. Their daughter, Rachel, has been managing operations for 8 years while their son, Michael, has been developing his potential. The parents want to retire, but they're afraid to promote Rachel to full leadership because they think Michael needs more time to prove himself. What does that have to do with my situation? Rachel is afraid to accept full leadership because she thinks her parents and brother need her to stay in her current supportive role. She's worried that if she takes charge completely, Michael will fail and her parents will lose their retirement security. Patricia opens the file and shows me organizational charts depicting the current family business structure versus proposed changes. But our analysis shows that Rachel's continued presence in a supportive role is actually enabling Michael's lack of development. He's never forced to grow because he knows Rachel will handle anything he can't manage. The parallel to my family situation is unmistakable. My availability as the family stabilizer has allowed Tommy to avoid developing independence and enabled my parents to postpone making difficult financial decisions. So you think my presence is actually hurting their recovery? I think your presence gives them the option to rely on you instead of developing their own coping skills. The Chicago position eliminates that option and forces them to become truly self-sufficient. Over the next few days, I test Patricia's theory by observing family dynamics during therapy sessions and informal conversations. When problems arise, everyone's first instinct is still to look to me for solutions or guidance, even though they're supposedly learning to communicate directly with each other. During Thursday's family session, Jessica expresses anxiety about financing her nursing school applications. Instead of discussing options with mom and dad or researching financial aid independently, she immediately turns to me for advice about budgeting and loan applications. Jessica, what resources have you explored on your own? I ask instead of jumping in with solutions. She looks surprised by the question. I figured you would know the best approaches since you handled your own college financing. But your situation is different from mine. What specific research have you done about nursing school financial aid? The conversation reveals that Jessica has been waiting for me to research her options rather than taking initiative herself. She's unconsciously recreated the family pattern where Lisa handles complicated problems while others wait for guidance. Similarly, when Tommy mentions struggling with the structure of his treatment program, Dad's immediate response is to ask me what I think about the program's effectiveness rather than encouraging Tommy to communicate directly with his counselors. Tommy, have you talked to your program coordinator about these concerns? I ask. I thought maybe you could call them and explain what I'm dealing with, Tommy replies. They might take it more seriously coming from you. Even mom and dad default to consulting me about their financial decisions rather than working directly with their debt counselor or making independent choices about their spending priorities. The pattern is subtle but consistent. Despite their progress in therapy and their commitment to healthier communication, my family is still using me as a filter for difficult conversations and a safety net for challenging decisions. Dr. Martinez addresses this dynamic during our next session. The family has made significant progress, but Lisa's continued local presence may be preventing the final stage of recovery, true independence. Are you saying I should take the Chicago job? I asked directly. I'm saying you should consider whether staying local serves your family's long-term interests or just makes their current transition feel safer. Mom speaks up. We don't want Lisa to feel pressured to leave, but we also don't want her to feel trapped here. What would happen if I wasn't available for advice or support? I asked the group. The question creates an uncomfortable silence. Finally, Tommy answers honestly, we probably have to figure things out ourselves instead of depending on you to research everything for us. And would that be good or bad? Dr. Martinez asks. Probably good, Jessica admits, but scary. Dad nods slowly. We've gotten comfortable having Lisa as our backup plan, maybe too comfortable. That evening, I drive to the house where I grew up, parking in front of the building that shaped my childhood and holds most of my family memories. The for sale sign on the front lawn represents both loss and new beginnings. My parents will move to a smaller place better suited to their actual financial situation, while Tommy will have to find his own housing and learn to manage adult responsibilities independently. The changes feel sad but necessary. The house had become a symbol of the family's financial dysfunction, too expensive to maintain, but too emotionally significant to give up. Selling it forces everyone to align their lifestyle with their reality instead of borrowing against an imaginary future. I call Helen to get her perspective on my final decision. I keep thinking I should stay until they're more stable. Lisa, when will they be stable enough? 6 months, a year, 5 years. At what point do you trust them to manage their lives without your oversight? I don't know. Then the answer is now. If you can't define when they'll be ready for your independence, they'll never be ready. You have to force the issue by making the decision that serves your future, not their comfort level. Helen's logic is irrefutable. My family's recovery timeline shouldn't dictate my career decisions. They need to prove they can function independently, and I need to prove I can pursue my goals without guilt. I call Patricia Friday morning and confirm my acceptance of the Chicago position. The relief I feel surprises me. I'd been so focused on the guilt of potentially abandoning my family that I hadn't acknowledged how excited I am about this professional opportunity. The Chicago job represents everything I've worked toward: leadership responsibility, strategic decision-making, and the chance to build something significant from the ground up. When I tell my family about my decision during Saturday's therapy session, their reactions reveal how much progress they've actually made. I'm proud of you for taking the job, Tommy says, and I'm proud of myself for being happy about your success instead of worried about how it affects me. Jessica hugs me tightly. I'm going to miss having you nearby, but I'm also excited to prove I can handle my life without constant advice from my big sister. Mom and Dad express similar sentiments. Sadness about the distance, but genuine pride in my achievement and recognition that my success doesn't threaten their recovery. Your promotion celebration is going to be very different from the one we missed, Mom says with a smile that looks like the first genuine happiness I've seen from her in months. The difficult choice becomes an empowering choice. I'm not abandoning my family. I'm completing the process of teaching them to function without me as their primary problem solver. For the first time in my adult life, I'm making a major decision based entirely on what's best for my future, not what's most comfortable for my family. It feels revolutionary. 3 weeks into my transition period, as I'm training my replacement and preparing for the move to Chicago, Helen suffers a mild heart attack that brings the entire family together in the hospital waiting room. The crisis strips away all our recent progress in communication and reveals how much we've grown in our ability to support each other without reverting to old patterns. I get the call at 6 in the morning from Mom, her voice shaky, but more controlled than I would have expected 6 months ago. Lisa Grandma Helen is in the emergency room. She had chest pains during the night, and the paramedics think it might be her heart. Can you meet us at Metropolitan Hospital? The old version of our family would have descended on the hospital in a panic, with everyone looking to me to coordinate medical decisions and manage everyone's emotions. Instead, I arrive to find that mom and dad have already spoken with the doctors. Jessica has contacted Helen's insurance company to verify coverage, and Tommy has called Helen's neighbor to arrange care for her cat. How is she? I ask as I join them in the cardiac unit waiting area. Stable, Dad reports. The doctors say it was a mild heart attack, but they want to keep her for observation and run some tests to determine if she needs any procedures. Have you been able to see her? She's been asking for you specifically, Mom says. The nurses said family can visit 2 at a time and she wants to talk to you first. Helen looks smaller in the hospital bed connected to monitors that beep steadily in the background, but her eyes are alert and her voice is strong when she sees me enter her room. Lisa, dear, sit down. I have some things to say while I'm still sharp enough to say them clearly. Despite her medical situation, Helen's directness hasn't diminished. If anything, the heart attack seems to have focused her thoughts with greater clarity. First, I want you to know that I'm proud of your decision to take the Chicago job. Don't let this medical situation change your mind about moving forward with your career. Helen, I can postpone the move if you need me here during your recovery. Absolutely not. Her voice carries the authority of someone who's made a definitive decision. I didn't survive 83 years, including the Great Depression, World War II, and raising 5 children just to have my granddaughter sacrifice her future for my health scare. She adjusts her position in the bed, waving away my attempt to help her get comfortable. Besides, this heart attack might be the best thing that's happened to our family in years. What do you mean? It's showing us how we handle crisis now versus how we used to handle crisis. 6 months ago, everyone would have been running around in circles expecting you to take charge of medical decisions and family coordination. Today, your parents handled the medical aspects, Jessica managed the practical details, and Tommy took care of my personal concerns. Nobody waited for you to arrive and fix everything. Her observation is correct. The family has been functioning independently during this emergency instead of defaulting to their old pattern of Lisa dependency. More importantly, Helen continues, this situation is revealing what our priorities really are now that we're being honest with each other. How so? Helen reaches for a water cup, and I notice her hands are steadier than I expected for someone who just had a heart attack. Tommy visited me yesterday, before the heart attack, to apologize for his lies and to thank me for supporting your boundary setting. He's been thinking about the impact his deception had on the whole family, not just on himself. He came to see you voluntarily. He's been visiting me every week since he started his treatment program. We've been having conversations about family responsibility and personal accountability. Yesterday, he told me that watching you set boundaries taught him that honesty might be difficult in the moment, but it's less exhausting than maintaining lies long term. This surprises me. I'd assume Tommy was simply complying with his treatment requirements, not actively reflecting on broader family dynamics. And Jessica, Helen continues, has been asking me about my experiences going back to school as an adult. She's planning to reapply for nursing school regardless of what happens with the family's financial situation. She's not waiting for permission or optimal circumstances. Helen shifts in the bed and fixes me with a direct gaze. But most importantly, your parents have been making decisions based on realistic assessments of their situation instead of hoping someone else will solve their problems. They've accepted that selling the house is necessary and they're actually excited about downsizing to something they can afford comfortably. You think my letter really changed things? Your letter forced everyone to choose between maintaining comfortable lives or building relationships based on truth. They chose truth, which means they chose you. Helen pauses for a moment, looking out of the hospital window at the city skyline. Lisa, I need to tell you something important about our family history. She reaches into the bedside table and pulls out an envelope that looks familiar. 60 years ago, I wrote a letter to my parents about their favoritism toward my brothers. I never sent it, and I've regretted that decision my entire adult life. You mentioned that letter before, but I didn't tell you what happened because I didn't send it. My brothers continued to receive family support for their poor decisions while I was expected to be independent. My parents died never understanding how their favoritism affected me. My brothers never learned to be responsible for their choices because the family always protected them from consequences. Helen's voice becomes more intense despite her medical condition. Your courage to send your letter gave me something I never had: the knowledge that at least one woman in our family refused to accept unfair treatment. You broke a cycle that has damaged women in our family for 3 generations. Helen, you don't need to. Yes, I do. This heart attack reminded me that I won't be around forever to see how your decision plays out long term. But I already know you did the right thing because your family is learning to function healthily for the first time in years. She hands me a different envelope, this one addressed to me in her neat handwriting. I wrote this letter last week before the heart attack. It explains some family history that might help you understand why your parents developed their dysfunctional patterns and why your decision to break those patterns is so significant. Before I can open the letter, a nurse enters to check Helen's vital signs and inform us that visiting time is ending. Promise me you won't let guilt about my health situation interfere with your career decision, Helen says as I prepare to leave. I promise. And promise me you'll read that letter tonight and then share it with your family when you're ready. They need to understand the larger context of what you've accomplished. As I leave Helen's room, I realize that her heart attack has become a test of our family's new dynamic rather than a crisis that reverts us to old patterns. Everyone is handling their responsibilities without looking to me for leadership or coordination. In the waiting room, my family is actually functioning better than they have during many normal situations. They're communicating directly with each other, making practical decisions collaboratively, and supporting Helen's recovery without creating additional drama. How did your visit go? Mom asks. She's doing well and wants everyone to know she's proud of how we're handling the situation. She's right, Jessica says. 6 months ago, this would have been chaos. Today, it feels manageable. Tommy nods. Having everyone know the truth about everything makes crisis situations easier instead of harder. We don't have to protect anyone from reality or pretend things are different than they are. Dad puts his arm around Mom's shoulders, and we don't have to wait for Lisa to tell us what to do or how to feel about it. The contrast between this family crisis and previous emergencies is stark. We're supporting each other without dependence, communicating without manipulation, and handling stress without reverting to dysfunctional roles. Helen's heart attack hasn't derailed our family's progress. It's proven how substantial that progress actually is. Helen's recovery goes smoothly, and she's discharged from the hospital within 3 days with a care plan that includes cardiac rehabilitation and some lifestyle modifications. More importantly, her health scare serves as a catalyst for accelerated family healing rather than a setback that triggers old patterns of crisis management. I use my remaining time before the Chicago move to help establish new family traditions that celebrate everyone's achievements equally. The most significant change is restructuring our approach to family gatherings around shared experiences rather than individual achievements that create opportunities for comparison and favoritism. Our first test comes when Jessica receives her acceptance letter for nursing school. Instead of throwing a party focused on her accomplishment, we plan a family dinner where everyone shares updates about their goals and progress. Tommy talks about his gambling recovery milestones. Mom and Dad discuss their budget successes and house hunting progress. I share details about my Chicago transition, and Jessica's nursing school acceptance becomes one part of a larger celebration of family growth. This feels different, Jessica observes as we clear dishes after dinner. Usually, family celebrations make someone feel left out because they're not the center of attention. Tonight, everyone got acknowledged. Tommy agrees. It's the first family dinner I can remember where I didn't feel pressure to be impressive or worry that someone else's success made me look bad by comparison. The new dynamic extends to our approach to financial support within the family. Instead of pooling resources to support Tommy's needs while expecting Jessica and me to be self-sufficient, we create a family assistance fund where everyone contributes according to their ability and receives support according to their genuine need. I want to contribute to Tommy's treatment costs, Jessica announces during our family financial planning meeting. Not because I have to, but because I want to invest in his recovery. And I want to help with Jessica's nursing school expenses, I add, but only if mom and dad also commit to realistic budgeting that doesn't put them back in debt. Tommy surprises everyone by volunteering to contribute a percentage of his part-time job earnings to Helen's medical expenses. She's been giving our family advice for free for decades. It's time we gave her something back. The most meaningful change is in our family's approach to my career advancement. Instead of treating my promotion as something that happens to me individually, they embrace it as a family success that reflects well on everyone's ability to support each other's growth. Mom and Dad coordinate a proper celebration dinner for my promotion, the one we missed months ago when this whole crisis began. But this version includes acknowledgement of Jessica's educational goals, Tommy's recovery progress, and their own financial improvements. This is the celebration we should have had originally, Dad says during his toast. Not just for Lisa's promotion, but for our whole family's ability to prioritize what actually matters. The restaurant is the same one where I sat alone in disbelief after receiving their original group text. This time, the table is full of family members who are genuinely present and engaged with my achievement instead of distracted by manufactured crisis around Tommy's fake accomplishments. To Lisa, Mom raises her glass for teaching us the difference between love and enabling and for showing us that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. To our family, I respond for choosing truth over comfort and growth over convenience. The celebration feels like closure for the painful chapter that began with their group text, but also like the beginning of something healthier and more sustainable. 2 weeks before my move to Chicago, I receive unexpected news that transforms the entire opportunity. Patricia calls me into her office with barely contained excitement about developments I hadn't anticipated. The Chicago position has evolved since we first discussed it, she says, closing her office door and settling into her chair with the expression she wears when she's about to deliver significant news. Evolved how Harrison Marketing Solutions is expanding faster than projected. The board has approved plans for a regional headquarters that will oversee not just Midwest operations, but also coordinate with our existing offices to develop a national presence. Patricia slides a revised contract across her desk. Instead of just managing the Chicago launch, you'd be overseeing the development of 4 regional offices over the next 3 years. And instead of relocating permanently, you'd split time between Chicago and a regional office that we're planning to establish. She pauses for effect. Here, in your hometown. The new arrangement would allow me to advance my career at an accelerated pace while maintaining connection to my family as they continue their recovery journey. Instead of choosing between professional growth and family relationship, I would have the opportunity to demonstrate that both are possible when they're built on healthy foundations. The hometown office would be operational within 2 years, Patricia continues. You'd spend the first year establishing operations in Chicago, then return to oversee the regional expansion while maintaining oversight of the Midwest territory. This is incredible, but why didn't this possibility come up earlier? Because the board wasn't sure about the expansion timeline until they saw our quarterly numbers. Your work on the Morrison account, the family business succession planning, convinced them that we need specialized expertise in family dynamics and business relationships. Your personal experience with boundary setting and family crisis management has actually enhanced your professional value. The irony is perfect. The family crisis that forced me to choose between career advancement and family loyalty has now created a career opportunity that makes both possible simultaneously. I negotiate the final terms of the position, ensuring that my return to establish the hometown office is contingent on my family maintaining the healthy dynamics they've been developing. I won't return to enable dysfunction, but I can return to participate in continued growth. When I share the news with my family during our final therapy session, their reactions demonstrate how much their perspective on my success has evolved. This is amazing for you professionally, Jessica says immediately, and it proves that doing what's best for your career can also create opportunities to maintain family relationships when those relationships are healthy. Tommy nods enthusiastically. I'm glad you'll be back eventually, but I'm even more glad that your decision wasn't based on what we needed from you. This happened because you're good at your job, not because you felt guilty about leaving us. Mom and Dad expressed similar sentiments: excitement about my professional advancement and relief that my success is being recognized appropriately by my company. The most important thing Dr. Martinez observes is that Lisa's career decision is based entirely on her professional interests. The fact that it might eventually allow more family contact is a bonus, not the primary consideration. Exactly, I agree. I'm not taking this position to make family relationships easier. I'm taking it because it's the best professional opportunity I've ever been offered. If it happens to allow more family time in the future, that's something we can enjoy without depending on it. The therapy session ends with our family's commitment to maintaining healthy dynamics regardless of geographical distance. We've learned to relate to each other as adults with individual goals and boundaries rather than as a dysfunctional system that requires constant management. 3 days before I leave for Chicago, Helen is released from cardiac rehabilitation with a clean bill of health and instructions to maintain her current activity level. She's planning to downsize to a senior living community that offers more social interaction and less home maintenance responsibility. This heart attack was a gift, she tells me during our final visit before my move. It forced me to evaluate what really matters and eliminate what doesn't, just like your letter did for the rest of the family. Are you nervous about the changes? Not at all. Change is exciting when it's chosen deliberately instead of forced by crisis. Your family is finally making deliberate choices based on reality instead of wishful thinking. As I pack my apartment for the move to Chicago, I realize that everything has changed since that night at Fletcher's Steakhouse when I received their devastating group text. My family has learned to function without me as their primary stabilizer. I've learned to prioritize my own goals without guilt. We've all learned the difference between love and enabling. Most importantly, we've proven that families can heal from dysfunction when members are willing to choose truth over comfort and growth over convenience. The letter I wrote in anger and disappointment has transformed into the foundation for genuine family relationships built on mutual respect rather than dysfunctional dependence. My promotion celebration that started this whole crisis has evolved into something much more significant: a family transformation that proves real love supports individual growth rather than demanding personal sacrifice. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my Chicago office overlooking Lake Michigan when Patricia calls with confirmation that our hometown expansion has been approved and accelerated. The regional office will open in 18 months instead of 2 years, which means I'll be returning home sooner than expected to a family that has continued growing and healing without depending on my presence. The updates I receive during weekly family video calls reveal just how much everyone has transformed when freed from the dysfunction that once defined our relationships. Tommy graduated from his gambling addiction program and has been clean for 4 months. More importantly, he's enrolled in a community college welding program that genuinely interests him and allows him to develop practical skills while earning steady income. His decision to pursue welding wasn't influenced by family pressure or expectations. It was his own choice based on his interests and aptitudes. The best part about welding school, he tells me during our last call, is that nobody expects me to be anything other than what I am. I'm not the family's great hope for the future anymore, and that's actually a relief. Jessica completed her first semester of nursing school with a 3.8 GPA while working part-time at a medical clinic. She's discovered a passion for pediatric nursing and is already planning her clinical rotations around children's hospitals. I forgot how much I love learning when it's something I chose for myself, she shares. Working toward goals that are mine instead of everyone else's makes even the difficult coursework feel rewarding. Mom and Dad successfully sold the family house and downsized to a comfortable apartment that fits their actual budget. The financial pressure that had been crushing them for years disappeared when they aligned their lifestyle with their income, rather than borrowing against imaginary future prosperity. The apartment is smaller, but it feels peaceful, Mom explains. We're not constantly worried about mortgage payments or home repairs we can't afford. For the first time in years, we're living within our means. Dad's contracting business has stabilized with a more realistic approach to project selection and pricing. Instead of taking jobs that were too large for his capacity or too cheap to be profitable, he's focused on developing a steady client base of smaller projects that he can complete efficiently. I realized I was trying to be impressive instead of trying to be sustainable, Dad admits. Now I bid jobs based on what I can actually deliver, not on what I think will make me look successful. Most remarkably, Helen has thrived in her senior living community, where she's become something of a celebrity for her perspectives on family dynamics and boundary setting. She leads a weekly discussion group for other residents dealing with adult children who are struggling with independence. Turns out my experience with family dysfunction has prepared me to help other people avoid the same mistakes, she tells me with obvious pride. Who knew that surviving 83 years of complicated family relationships would become my retirement career? The family's new traditions have developed organically around authentic connection rather than forced celebration. Instead of elaborate parties for manufactured achievements, they have monthly dinners where everyone shares updates about their genuine goals and challenges. We talk about real things now, Jessica observes, instead of pretending everything is perfect or focusing only on one person's success. We actually discuss what we're struggling with and what we're learning. Tommy adds, it's the first time family dinners have felt like something I want to attend rather than something I have to endure. Nobody's performing or competing for attention. The most significant change is in how they handle family crises. When Mom developed a minor health issue requiring outpatient surgery, everyone contributed according to their ability, without anyone becoming the primary manager of logistics and emotions. Tommy arranged time off work to drive Mom to appointments. Jessica coordinated with medical staff based on her nursing training, and Dad handled insurance and billing questions. Mom recounts, nobody expected Lisa to fly back from Chicago to manage the situation. And most importantly, Dad adds, nobody panicked or created drama around a routine medical procedure. We handled it like adults who care about each other instead of like crisis-addicted people looking for reasons to feel overwhelmed. My professional success in Chicago has exceeded expectations, partly because my experience with family boundary setting has enhanced my ability to work with challenging clients and complex organizational dynamics. The skills I developed dealing with manipulation and dysfunctional communication at home have proven surprisingly valuable in corporate environments. Your background with family crisis management makes you uniquely qualified to work with family businesses and organizations struggling with internal conflicts, Patricia explains during my 6-month performance review. You understand the difference between professional boundaries and personal relationships in ways that most consultants don't. The Morrison account, the family restaurant chain dealing with succession planning, has become a template for how we approach businesses where family dynamics interfere with operational efficiency. My personal experience with favoritism and enabling behavior allows me to identify and address similar patterns in client organizations. Having lived through family dysfunction makes me better at recognizing it in other contexts, I tell Patricia. I can spot enabling behavior, financial manipulation, and boundary violations because I've dealt with all of them personally. But the most profound change is in my own relationship with success and family approval. I no longer need their validation to feel confident about my achievements, which means I can enjoy their pride when they express it without depending on it for my self-worth. The funny thing about not needing their approval, I share with my therapist during a session, is that their approval feels more genuine now that it's not something I'm desperately seeking. When I announced the timeline for returning to establish the regional office, my family's reaction demonstrates how completely our dynamics have shifted. They're excited about spending more time together, but they're also clear that their continued growth doesn't depend on my presence. We're looking forward to having you closer, Mom says, but we've learned how to function independently. Your return will be a bonus, not a necessity. Jessica agrees. I'll love having my big sister nearby again, But I've also proven to myself that I can handle my life without constant advice and support from you. Tommy's response is the most telling. I'm excited you're coming back because I want to show you how much I've changed, not because I need you to fix my problems or manage my relationship with mom and dad. The regional office will focus on family business consulting and organizational development, which means my personal experience with family dysfunction has literally created my professional niche. The crisis that started with their group text about not being their priority has evolved into a career specialization in helping families and organizations develop healthier relational dynamics. 6 months ago, I sat alone in Fletcher's Steakhouse feeling devastated by my family's rejection and convinced that their priorities would never align with my value. Today, I'm succeeding professionally because of the skills I developed navigating that crisis while maintaining family relationships that are healthier than they've ever been. The letter I wrote in anger and hurt has become the foundation for everything good that's happened since. Setting boundaries didn't destroy my family. It forced all of us to build something better than what we had before. Most importantly, I've learned that love without boundaries isn't really love at all. Real love supports individual growth rather than demanding personal sacrifice. Real family celebrates each person's authentic achievements rather than creating artificial competitions or hierarchies. The group text that devastated me 6 months ago taught me the most valuable lesson of my adult life. You teach people how to treat you by what you're willing to accept. When I stopped accepting treatment that didn't reflect my value, my family learned to treat me with the respect I deserved. Now, as I prepare to return home in 18 months to a family that's learned to function without me while still loving me, I realize that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable dysfunction, even when it feels like abandonment. Setting boundaries saved my family by forcing everyone to choose between comfortable lies and uncomfortable growth. They chose growth, which means they chose to become people worthy of genuine love, rather than people who demand love without offering respect in return. The promotion that started this entire crisis has become the foundation for a career that allows me to help other families learn the same lessons mine learned the hard way. Sometimes losing everything you thought you wanted is the only way to discover what you actually need. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? How do you balance supporting loved ones with maintaining your own boundaries? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more stories about family dynamics and personal growth, and share this with anyone who might be struggling with similar family challenges. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for building relationships based on genuine love and mutual respect. Until next time, take care of yourselves and don't be afraid to prioritize your own well-being.